Where's Karim? Ladies and gentlemen, Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness. Please remain standing for the playing of the national anthem. Prime Minister and the Minister of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Honorable Desmond Mackenzie, Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, Honorable Pernell Charles Jr., Minister of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change, Dr. Alwyn Hales, Permanent Secretary, Minister of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change, Mrs. Marsha Henry Martin, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, Mr. Paris Leo Ayi, Chairman, Caribbean Cement Company Limited, Mr. Yago Castro, and other executives of the Cement Company Group, Mr. Audley Gordon, Executive Director, National Solid Waste Management Authority, Mr. Peter Knight, Chief Executive Officer, National Environment and Planning Agency, officers of the Ministries of HUREC, that's my short for housing, etc., local government, NSWMA, members of the media, all, good morning. Welcome to the ceremony for the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding between the Government of Jamaica and corporate partner, the Caribbean Cement Company Limited, in the public-private partnership developed under the National Program for the Responsible Disposal of End-of-Life Pneumatic Tires. My role as the person who was commanded in his inimitable style by Minister Vaz, the then minister with assigned responsibility for environment, was that the Prime Minister, and that name is called regularly, you know, had agreed to this partnership between the government and CCL, and I was told, take it and make it happen. In order to execute the Prime Minister's policy directive, My role in this signal event is to provide an explanatory overview on the genesis and culminative steps taken to realize the achievement we mark today. The government has long recognized that the cumulative practice of stockpiling millions of end-of-life pneumatic tires across some 8 local disposal sites had the potential of exacerbating environmental, health, and safety risks. Corrective efforts began as far back as 2018, when Minister Vaz, in his then capacity as the Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, in collaboration with Minister Desmond McKenzie, led the charge in seeking to identify viable and cost-effective options to significantly reduce the volume of end-of-life tires stockpiled at the disposal sites using locally available technologies. The MOU framework speaks to transportation of the tires from the Riverton City site to the incineration of the tires at the CCL plant, utilizing its high-temperature kilns, and this was one of the options identified to be vigorously pursued. Crucial in the steps towards this MOU was the establishment and work of an implementing task force and committee comprised of members of the Ministries of Economic Growth and Job Creation, the then Local Government and Community Development, now Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, National Environment and Planning Agency, as well as the National Solid Waste Management Authority. It would be remiss of me not to make special mention of the contribution of Ms. Gillian Guthrie, Acting Chief Technical Director, MEGJC at the time, and the unwavering support of the Attorney General's Chambers and the facilitation of CCCL through its representative, Mr. Balfour Dennison, which were relentless and unquestionable. Note that with the establishment of the Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment, and Climate Change, that ministry saw to the finalization of the process and, as they would say, now put the icing on the cake that we will witness today. The first concrete outcome of the strong determination to address this significant solid waste management challenge was a pilot project undertaken in 2019. This project, which involved the logistics of the on-site sorting and handling and the transportation of the pneumatic tires from the River City disposal site to CCL for incineration, was deemed a success. More importantly, the project, buttressed by the work of the committee, contributed in a fundamental manner to the development of the enabling policy, which is the 10-year national program on the environmentally sound management of end-of-life pneumatic tires, which was approved by Cabinet in November 2019. You will note that in our program today, we will hear from the Prime Minister, ably backed by, or in this instance, preceded by the Honorable Desmond McKenzie, Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, the Honorable Pernell Charles Jr., Minister of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change, and Mr. Yago Castro, Managing Director of CCCL, our worthy private sector partner in the program. They will underscore the pertinent perspectives important to the national program, which is to be rolled out in the current financial year, that is 21-22, of which this MOU signing ceremony signifying the implementation of the plan for the disposal of the tires at the Riverton City disposal site forms a part. It is therefore gratifying, and I know I speak for all the parties involved, that we are at this point where the national program on the environmentally sound management of end-of-life pneumatic tires, as approved by Cabinet, is now coming to fruition. Implementation of the national program is a first but important step in tackling one element of our waste stream. I reiterate that the government is always appreciative and happy to partner with the private sector, in this case CCL, on this and other such initiatives, which will ultimately redound to the benefit of the environment and public health in Jamaica. In closing, I take this opportunity to wholeheartedly applaud all parties concerned, Gillian and her team, let me put it that way, and some are here. Gillian, NEPA, Mr. Denniston, Yago, sometimes we met. Are there other representatives, Gillian? Oh, and how could I? You're the drafter of the MOU. Yes, our legal representative from NSWMA. You all did a fantastic job. And you worked tirelessly to ensure that the commitment that the Prime Minister made, and many times we had to refer to that commitment. In Marsha, sometimes when I called Marsha, when we thought we were at the end of the road, and Marsha would say, if the Prime Minister say, and them, so PS, let us get it done. Thank you, Marsha. Thank you for the leadership and the guidance that you gave. So we are happy this morning that the Prime Minister's commitment has seen it through to implementation of the program. Commitment made, commitment kept. Thank you. We have a very short program this morning. We know PM is very, very tense because, you know, the protocols, and he wants to ensure that he leads by example. We have not exceeded the number, but we know that we are not to be in here. Prime Minister, the numbers are correct, sir. So way, way below what is allowable. But we know that we're not to keep ourselves in enclosed, and you're very mindful of that. So we're going to go through very, very quickly with our brief function ceremony this morning. And to begin, I invite Minister Charles to come and bring remarks.
Let me firstly say good morning to everyone. Thank you. It's not often I get a chance to move the mic up. So I'm going to, yes, even though I don't have, no worries. Just trying to be the height of the Prime Minister. First, let me acknowledge Madam Moderator and our Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Mrs. Sewell, Most Honorable Prime Minister, colleague Minister, Honorable Desmond McKenzie, Dr. Hales, our Permanent Secretary from the Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change, Mrs. Henry Martin, PS, Local Government, Rural Development, Dr. Leawai, as well as Mr. Castro from Caribbean Cement Company Limited, Mr. Knight. Special commendations to our Acting Chief Technical Director, Ms. Gillian Guthrie, and the hard work that she has put in with colleagues, representatives from all of the ministries, NSWMA, CCL, specially invited guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. I'm often asked when we discuss this very long name of environmentally sound management of end-of-life pneumatic tires, what on earth does that mean? And breaking it down to simple terms, these end-of-life tires are the tires that either could not be reused or have not been reused. They have expired their sufficiently safe life and their intended purpose, and they have not been retreaded. And the question that we have is, what do we do with them? They can either form part of the negative impact on our environment and on our health, or they can, through innovation, become a part of this sustainable cycle towards sustainable development. And that is why we are here today, because we have recognized that in this country that we love, we have over 2 million end-of-life tires at the island's waste disposal sites. And annually, I'm advised that we receive across the country approximately 185,700 or more, because you're not even calculating those those tires that don't make it to our sites. So we have an issue in Jamaica with the tires that are stockpiled. They are a threat to our environment. And researchers have guided us that the tires actually are among the most common plastic polluters on Earth. In fact, the scientists tell us, Mr. Knight, that when the rubber on the tires wear, they throw off what we define in science as plastic polymers that often find themselves ending up as pollutants to our waterways and getting down to the rivers and oceans and ending up becoming a large part of the problem, because they break down to the microplastic waste which impacts the world's oceans. In 2017, Mr. Leo, a report from the International Journal on Environmental Research and Public Health said that the tires account for as much as 10% of the microplastic waste in the world's oceans. And another report had it up to 28%. I want us to stop and understand how massive a negative impact that is, not only on the marine space, but on our own life. Let me take you there. Once the tire particles makes its way down to the rivers and oceans and break down to microplastics, it will have a noticeable effect on marine life. We have had some research done to show that even shrimp, PS, when tested in the lab, they eat the tire particles. And who ends up eating shrimp? So we have to see the connectivity. So apart from the risk to marine life, there are also serious health hazards to us. Tires also retain water and other debris for long periods of time, and therefore they inadvertently become ideal hosts for mosquitoes and increasing the risk of vector-borne diseases. If they are not properly handled as well, we know that tires can also aid in the spread of non-native species of plants and animals which impact our ecosystems. Not to mention, Mr. Henry, for us at the Ministry with the responsibility for environment, we have a very important focus on air quality. We know in Jamaica that we have a propensity to burn tires for many different reasons. And when the tires are lit, whether they're at the landfill or elsewhere on the road, those resulting open fires are difficult to control and extinguish, and they have a negative impact not only on the environment through air, soil, and water, but it is a significant contributor to the respiratory illness and skin diseases that we see across our communities. We also know that persons involved in illegal activities that burn the tires for the purpose of taking out the metals, the steel wiring, and the lead and the zinc, add to the problem that we have. Overall, Prime Minister, tires are not biodegradable, and they occupy valuable space that I know the NSWMA needs at the landfill sites. And so, in closing, this 10-year national program will see the removal of tires to the high-temperature kilns at Caribbean Cement Company Limited for disposal. And it is therefore very important not only to reduce the cost of storing them, but also to deal with those health and environmental issues that arise from their storage. The MOU that we are signing today represents a true public-private partnership involving the Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change, Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, National Solid Waste Management Authority, Caribbean Cement Company Limited, our Prime Minister, leading us towards the cultivation and the replication of the kinds of projects that will preserve our environment and, by extension, the health and well-being of our citizens. I want to commend and congratulate all stakeholders that have participated in this process and welcome the signing of this MOU this morning as I look forward to its outcomes. May Jamaica and her people benefit from the joint efforts for decades to come. Thank you.
Excuse me. Working across ministries, departments, agencies is usually very, very challenging. And what we experienced with this project, as simple as it may seem today, was really very complex. Took a lot out of poor Gillian. And sometimes when the going got rough, I had to call on Minister Mackenzie. And he said, what you say? Yeah, man. So we are going to hear from him now. His commitment towards the project. Yes, Minister Mackenzie.
Prime Minister, I can assure you that that was not me in terms of what was just said a while ago. Most Honorable Prime Minister, Madam Permanent Secretary, thank you for the introduction. Colleague Minister Charles, Mr. Audley Gordon, Executive Director of the National Solid Waste Management Authority, my own Permanent Secretary and the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal and Climate Change. Representative of the Jamaica, of the Caribbean Cement Company, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. The signing of this Memorandum of Understanding is a very, very important step as a National Solid Waste Management Authority continue its effort to rid itself of the many tires that is spread across the various disposal sites across Jamaica. Actually, 8 of our sites account for a significant amount of the tires, but Riverton City, the largest of the location, account for actually 70% of all the tires across Jamaica. The National Solid Waste Management Authority continues to use its resources, the very limited resources, to ensure that we stockpile and protect the tires from being used. As Minister Charles mentioned, they can be used for many reasons. In 2012 to 2015, fire at the Riverton City landfill, which could be attributed to the deliberate burning of tires, cost the taxpayers of Jamaica between 2012 to 2015 some $400 million. One fire alone costs over $300 million. And even today, we are still paying the persons who took actions against the government because they were badly affected by the effects of those fires. and the National Solid Waste Management Authority since 2016 have been careful, deliberate in its management of the facility. And so far, Prime Minister, since 2016 to the present, we have only spent some $50 million to contain fire at the landfill. So it is a tremendous improvement, and it speaks to the level of management that has been brought to the National Solid Waste Management Authority in its control of the landfill. This agreement today between the Caribbean Cement Company and the government, as the PS rightly remind you, when Minister Vaz was there, the Prime Minister tasked us with the responsibility of putting it together. And at some point in time, we were worrying, where are the funds going to come from? And I was glad when the Prime Minister beat his chest and said, I will provide the first source of funding for the project. But it has been a collective response of government, and this is what collective government is all about, sharing and working together. The Ministry of Environment is critical in working closely with the Ministry of Local Government, because we are the ministry that has the direct responsibility for maintaining and taking care of our disposal sites. We welcome this agreement, and we look forward to the successful implementation over the next decade, which will see not just government, but the people of Jamaica coming out as the winners, because an healthy environment contributes to a developing economy where people are free to work and deliver. So, Prime Minister, my colleague minister, head of the Caribbean Cement Company, this is a great day. And you know, Prime Minister, don't beat me in the corner after I say this. Just about 2 weeks ago, the opposition spokesperson on local government in Parliament raised the question about this project. I say no more. Thank you.
Thank you, Ministers Charles and Mackenzie. Now, we're going to be hearing now from Mr. Iago Castro, Managing Director for CCCL. And let me tell you something. He's a good private sector person to work with. He doesn't complain, regardless of how long it was taking, regardless of the many glitches. He would sit quietly. When he turned up at meetings, he would just sit and he would listen. And going forward, Mr. Castro, where do we go from here? He says, Bali will take care of that. Bali will take care of that. So let us hear from him now, taking care of himself.
Okay, good morning to all. Moderator of this morning's ceremony and Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Mrs. Audrey Sewell. Prime Minister, Most Honorable Andrew Holness. Minister of Housing, Urban Renewable, Environment and Climate Change, Honorable Bernard Charles Jr., and Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, Honorable Desmond McKenzie. Other Ministers of Government, other Permanent Secretaries, Executive Director of the National Solid Waste Management Authority, Mr. Audley Gordon, distinguished guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all. It's with great pleasure that I join you here today at the official signing ceremony of the Memorandum of Understanding for this national program of the environmental sound management of end-of-life pneumatic tires. Last time we were here was back in 2019. We signed then an MOU along with several government ministries and entities to initiate at that time a pilot, a Rockford plant. Under that agreement, nearly 6,000 tires stockpiled at the Riverton City disposal site in Kingston were removed to our plant in Rockford and were processed in our kiln successfully. The process took place over 40 days, and the waste was converted into energy for our plant. Ladies and gentlemen, today's signing ceremony marks the continuation of the project over the long term and at the national level. It represents an extension of our shared value purpose of being responsible corporate citizens and will result in positive environmental and social inputs. It also represents a culmination of the commitment given by CARICEMEN to reviewing the pilot project following its completion with the overarching view of creating a safer and more sustainable way of not only disposing but incorporating these ties into a circular economy process. This certainly will reduce our CO2 emissions by replacing fossil fuels in our process and avoiding emissions that otherwise will be generated in the degradation process of these ties in Riverton landfill. Ladies and gentlemen, tie-derived fuel, what is called TDF, is an extremely good alternative to the traditional fuels of oil and coal typically used in cement kilns. Using TDF in cement kilns reduces emission of CO2 and nitrogen oxides, NOx, and it also helps to avoid the high risks of fires and reproduction of mosquitoes that could transmit several illnesses, as you all know. Therefore, it will help to improve environmental and public health efforts in Jamaica. At CARICEMEN, which is part of the CEMEX global group, achieving environmental excellence is our priority. We dedicate efforts to address key sustainability-related issues, from biodiversity and conservation to renewable energy, climate change, and emissions monitoring. We're improving our carbon footprint and being part of the solution that creates a more circular economy in Jamaica. We at the end-of-life concept is replaced with restoration, shifts towards the use of renewables and the elimination of toxic chemicals and waste. By 2030, we are aiming to reduce as much as 35% our CO2 emissions from our cement products. This project is aligned with our targets as a company worldwide. CEMEX is committed on reducing, as I said, CO2 by finding alternative materials to be used in the processing of clinker and cement for a full rollout of delivering net zero CO2 concrete to all our customers by 2050. Prime Minister Holness, ministers and heads of agencies present, we look forward to working with the government in carrying out this project. You can be assured of our commitment to this initiative. Thanks.
I'm going to spare you. Thank you, Mr. Castro. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the moment to hear from the man that I know most of you have come to listen to, the person who is usually conceptualizing and having persons walking behind him to get it done. And this morning, it's one such occasion where he gave the policy directive, and the runner at the time was Minister Vaz. And he passed the baton to me for a short while, and then on to Gillian and the team, which I said earlier is comprised of representatives from the ministries, agencies, and from CCCL. And so, having been there from the beginning, he has a good grasp of what the program entails, what was his idea, his vision for the project. And this, I know I invite the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister, to come and share with us. Prime Minister.
So these days, I start by saying all protocols appear to have been observed as it relates to the Disaster Risk Management Act. And the other protocols, thank you, Madam Permanent Secretary, Audrey Sewell, you have actually been the driver of this project, the person who has sought to its efficient coordination. Not an easy thing to do when you're working across ministries, even in the same government. Let me also acknowledge the support of the Honorable Desmond McKenzie, Minister of Local Government and Rural Development. When the idea was posited, Minister McKenzie's heart was very much willing, but he made sure to point out to me that the ministry's pocket was weak. Not that the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation's pocket was any stronger. It was just that my heart was stronger than his. So we put up the first seed money to get the project going. And then, of course, we have our new minister, the Honorable Pernell Charles Jr., the Minister of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment, and Climate Change, who is now carrying through the project in collaboration with Minister McKenzie to fruition. And we'll see the project through, hopefully over the next few phases of it, which will last for a decade. I also want to acknowledge the permanent secretaries in the Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment, and Climate Change, Dr. Alwyn Hales, and Permanent Secretary Marsha Henry Martin in the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. I want to acknowledge Mr. Paris Liawi Sr., Board Chairman, and Mr. Yago Castro, Managing Director, Caribbean Cement Company Limited. We have here with us today as well Mr. Audley Gordon, Executive Director of the National Solid Waste Management Authority, Mr. Peter Knight, Chief Executive Officer of the National Environment and Planning Agency, other senior officers and ministries and public bodies representatives, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Today symbolizes a change in perception from waste as a problem to waste as a resource. The problem that we need to overcome and the opportunities that we must grasp are interwoven. They are not separate things. The lesson that we should learn is that whatever presents a problem, somewhere there, if you search hard enough, if you approach it from an innovative perspective, you can actually find an opportunity. Indeed, the problems exist because we refuse to look for new ways to solve them. And what we see is the obstacle to overcome rather than the stairs to climb. Fortunately, today we are seeing the opportunity. And indeed, the pandemic has forced us in many ways, not just with recycling and environmental sustainability, but in all other things. The pandemic has forced us to find solutions to our problems. It is estimated that over 2 million used and waste pneumatic tires are generated in Jamaica per annum. Most of these tires are indiscriminately disposed of along roadways, in gullies, stockpiled in open lots, and, of course, stored in our landfills. And we estimate that we have approximately 2 million tires stockpiled at Riverton City. And we receive approximately 185,700 tires per year in all our landfills. So we have a stock and we have a flow. And that stock is not going to be depleted so easily because these tires are not biodegradable. So leaving them there in a stockpile is not a solution. It is creating a problem. And their very presence creates a myriad of environmental hazards, public health risks, along with other challenges. Further to that, they occupy valuable space when hoarded at landfills, thereby posing additional site management concerns. It is for this reason that some jurisdictions, for example, the European Union, have banned the disposal of tires at landfills. The chemical composition of these tires, their shape, together with their impermeability, causes them to retain water and other debris for long periods, thus making them ideal hosts for mosquitoes and rats and other vectors. And of course, we know what diseases can follow from that: dengue, chikungunya, malaria, etc. Moreover, if tires are not properly handled and transported, they can aid, as we said earlier, in the breeding of various vectors, but they can cause fires, dangerous fires. The Minister of Urban Renewal and Climate Change, who, by the way, people don't know this, has a degree in science. People know you as a lawyer, but you were a scientist before, explained the process of the microplastics coming from tires, and that's one major problem. But in Jamaica, our country, our citizens would recall in 2015 that there was a massive fire at the Riverton City landfill. Minister Mackenzie explained that that fire cost us approximately $300 million to contain, and we are still paying, as Minister Mackenzie pointed out. And such fires over the period 2012 to 2015 would have cost the government over $400 million. Now, as a country that is speaking loudly on the international scene regarding environmental protection, sustainable development, and climate change, we have a moral imperative to lead by example. And I believe that there's never been another government in Jamaica that has championed environmentally sustainable solutions as this government. We get criticized and beaten up unfairly because we have taken the approach that on the one hand, we have to address our poverty issues, and on the other hand, we have to preserve our environment as a legacy for generations to come. But the conversation that is had sometimes is as if we must just preserve the legacy and don't address poverty. And nothing can go like that. Because if you don't address poverty, it will destroy the legacy. And that has to be the thrust of conversation, of the narrative around environmental management. We must get our people employed. We must use our resources sustainably. The people must benefit equitably from the use of the resources. And when they get income, they get employment, they are engaged productively, we are then able to engage them with information so that they themselves can become stewards of the environment. And that is what we're trying to do. We're trying to create a society where people understand the nexus between alleviating poverty, creating prosperity, and preserving the environment. And in everything that we have done, we have tried to do that. So you are seeing development happening in the country, and we are managing how it is happening. People are returning to work. We are seeing an expansion in some of our industries, in construction in particular. But we are also being very proactive in ensuring that we implement programs that address the protection of the environment. This is one such program where, because of our commitment, we are putting in the resources in partnership with the private sector to find an innovative solution. But this is not the only one. Just remind me, which government put in place the ban on plastics? Which government it was that demarked the cockpit country that for decades we've been discussing it and have done nothing about it? Which government is resolving the issues of where mining can and cannot take place? Which government is dealing with plastic recycling and ensuring that there will be separation and that we have a plastic buyback system in place? So when you hear the conversations about environmental management, I implore all well-thinking citizens, don't just listen to one side of the conversation. Pay attention to the full picture, right? You have to eat, and we have to protect the environment. And the government is making sure that you can pursue your livelihood and still have the environment that you can enjoy and leave as a legacy for your children. It's a balance in sustainability. That is what we're doing. There are issues, of course, obviously, and this project demonstrates that issue. It has taken far too long. We've been working on this piece since 2016, 2017, thereabouts. The concept started, we started to talk about it in 2016, and then we put things in place from 2017 going into 2018. But it has just taken too long. We need to move these innovative things, these innovative ideas, much more quickly through our government. You know, that is the greatest challenge. If it is one thing from our culture that I would like to see transition into our bureaucracy, into our thinking, is speed. And that is what we should make our motto, you know. We should just make business at the speed of thought. We should do things at Usain Bolt speed. We should be breaking the records in getting these innovative ideas implemented. It's taking us far too long. And the other issue, of course, is that we are not doing multiples of these. And it speaks to the stage of the bureaucracy that we have as a country. We are a developing country. It is going to take some time for all our executives to appreciate and understand the innovative ideas, because that is always the first challenge, to get all the managers to understand the end result. And then, you know, we're not a bureaucracy that rewards risk-taking. So the question is always, if I do this, there is no template for it, it is something new. If something goes wrong, who is going to get blamed? And, you know, I don't want to go before the PAAC or the PAC to have my name called up in media. So nobody is taking any risk. So everybody is going to, you know, wait till everything is perfected. And of course, people who are in business know that if you don't take some risk, there will be no reward. So government projects just move very, very slow, precisely because we have developed a culture of, you know, if there is any risk, the people who take the risk are the ones who are going to be slaughtered in the public. And so nobody takes any risk. So you would hear the permanent secretary and Minister Mackenzie talk about my involvement in it. My involvement in this project has been to drive it, to say, get it done. It has to be done. And, you know, regardless of what my directions are, my directions cannot supersede what the rules are, what the rules say. And so another challenge of our bureaucracy is that some of our rules and processes are not in sync with getting things done in an efficient and timely manner. And that is just the reality. There are hundreds of innovative projects that we have, but to get them done. So a part of my job is not to just highlight it and complain about it. My job is also to change it, and we are working behind the scenes to see how we can improve the speed of the bureaucracy that we have. There is one other project like this, slightly different, of a much larger magnitude, which we have been working on since 2016. And that is the whole issue of creating a waste-to-energy plan for Jamaica. We have put in place an enterprise team. They are studying how this can be done. It is not a simple issue. It's a very complex matter. We have had support of several of our multilateral partners in studying, and I am given assurances that in short order I will be able to come to the country and declare a pathway towards developing a sustainable waste-to-energy strategy for Jamaica, which would see, for example, the conversion of waste to electricity, major changes, possibly the moving of the Riverton City landfill to another suitable location, the introduction of nationally required separation of plastics, which we have started on, by the way. The Ministry of Local Government, through the NSWMA, has started a pilot project, well, several pilot projects in several areas in Jamaica, supported initially by the government of Japan, and we make note of that. And in several communities across Jamaica, we are seeing separation of plastics taking place in anticipation, of course, of moving towards broad-scale waste-to-energy strategy for Jamaica. But having said all of that, I want to just return to the matter at hand. So it takes approximately, based upon statistics provided here from the Cement Sustainable Initiative 2002, it takes approximately 60 to 130 kilograms of fuel oil and 110 kilowatt hours of electricity to produce 1 ton of cement. So you can see that the production of cement is a highly intensive, energy-consuming activity. As such, it is important that the cement industry identifies ways in which it can substitute fossil fuels for sustainable alternative energy sources. End-of-life tires are ideal for use as an alternative fuel in cement production. Burning tires in cement kilns reduces environmental contaminants because organic content completely burns in the kiln and heavy metals are trapped inside the final product. Tires contain zinc and ferrous materials in their composition, and both increase chemical properties and the quality of cement. So Carib Cement has a technical capacity to process a minimum of 320,000 tires per year. So you would be significantly reducing the stock of tires that we have. So in effect, you're taking more out of the stock than is flowing in. So over a period of time, we should be very, very low in terms of a stockpile at our dumps across Jamaica. Following a successful pilot in 2019, Cabinet approved a full rollout of the National Program for the Environmentally Sound Management of End-of-Life Tires. Phase 1 of the program, which is estimated to cost Jamaican $272 million, will span 10 years from July 1, 2021 to June 30th, 2031. And it is focused on the disposal of over 2 million tires located at the Riverton City disposal site. Depending on how fast we are actually able to implement our waste-to-energy strategy, we may have to use up those tires much faster, because the way in which we are disposing of our waste now cannot continue. We cannot continue with the Riverton City site as it is. We're going to have to do something about it. And it might be that we may have to move it. So when that time comes, we may have to renegotiate this to use up the tires much faster. Phase 2 and Phase 3, which is estimated to cost $47 million, will run for 5 years, from the 1st of July 2026 to June 30th, 2031, which will focus on the ongoing collection and disposal of tires at other disposal sites, not just Riverton City. The program will also develop an inventory of end-of-life tires and implement a public education and awareness campaign. There are other uses for these end-of-life tires. I know that there are several private sector initiatives at hand. One of them would be to turn these tires into paving materials. Other initiatives would be to use them in asphalt for roads. So we encourage other private sector initiatives in this regard. Let's just use up the 2 million that we have very quickly. 10 years is a very long time. And let's face it, our economy is going to expand. There will be more cars and there will be more tires. So it is not a supply that is going to decline and disappear. It is, in fact, what you would call a stable supply, a stable capacity. And we encourage not just the cement company, which we are very happy that you have come on board, and we congratulate you in your social and corporate consciousness for doing this. And we encourage other private sector players to come on board with the conversion of tires in whatever innovative ways that you can find. So the program creates a triple win. It gets rid of used tires in landfills. It reduces the fossil fuel used in cement production, and it actually improves cement quality. It is good for business, and it is good for the environment. And it meets this government's mandate of sustainable use of our resources and the protection of our environment, while at the same time promoting economic growth and prosperity for the people of Jamaica. Again, let me commend the Caribbean Cement Company Limited and indeed the government personnel who worked very hard to bring this initiative to fruition. Thank you.
Very much, Prime Minister, and we take note of the various other environmental initiatives that are being spearheaded by the government, and we look forward to them. We note also, in terms of you reminding us that in all that we do, trying to protect the environment, we also have to consider the livelihood of the people. We also note that this project is slated to will take us to 2031. That looks like, is it? A long time. And I do hope that most of us in here will be around then to see to the conclusion of the whole matter. So we are looking forward to 2031, and we are looking in anxious anticipation and with great excitement for the next project, Gillian. All right, you can count me in on it. So now, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the point where we'll be having the official signing, and the persons who are seated at the tables, and we have had to make some adjustments because of the protocol, the COVID protocol. We have Mr. Castro, he'll sign. Minister Charles will be one of the witnesses, and then the Prime Minister will sign. Minister Mackenzie will also be one of the witnesses, after which we are going to play musical chairs, and they will, except for the Prime Minister, will vacate their seats, and PSs will sign along with Mr. Gordon. So we will we'll have the first set of signing by the Prime Minister, the ministers, and Mr. Castro. But don't start yet, we'll tell you, we'll give you the cue. Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for this being here with us today to witness this very, very significant event. And we want. Yes, and here we go. We look forward to more such projects, more such excitement, and hopefully we'll meet here again to have similar signing to get the ball rolling. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you to the media representatives and other specially invited guests.